Hi, this is Carlos Cousins. This is a sentence completion question. For this sort of problem, what matters most, of course, is your familiarity with the vocabulary and the answer choices. But you should also be watching out for keywords. What I always tell um, people to watch out for are words such as though, although, and despite in the beginning of a sentence. So here we've got although, or the word however in the middle of a sentence. And words like that are going to introduce an inherent opposition between the first and the second idea of a sentence. Um, and there will either be, as in this case, a comma that is going to mean that the idea that follows the sentence here is going to be inherently different from the idea that precedes it. Or if you had the word however, you would have however here in place of the comma. And for the exam, I would write plus or minus, um, just so that you remember that it's going to be something opposite, just as positive is opposite to negative. Another thing that I tell people to watch out for is words like because, um, or due to, thus, which we're going to introduce a cause where was previously said. Always a semicolon. A semicolon is a big one. A semicolon here means that what's going to follow can introduce a cause just like because or due to would, but also that it could expand on the idea immediately before the semicolon. So here we're talking about either a cause or an expansion of what was said, a gloss of the previous idea. And then, of course, words such as comparisons such as than or remain here, which would mean that the meaning of the word that it's referring to, so here malcontent, for example, is the adjective we're talking about, has to have a meaning that is similar to the meaning of the word that it's going to be introduced in the blank space here. So we're going to have here a similar meaning, remain. And then, of course, fourth criterion for this is the meaning is coherent, that the sentence isn't belying itself by what it's saying. So let's go ahead and see which of these works based on these um, criteria. The first one, temperament and cantankerous. So although gastric bypass surgery brings about pronounced physiological changes, so even though your body's changing, your body's going to change when you go through gastric bypass surgery, it doesn't commonly affect a person's temperament. So this makes sense. The way that you behave, the way that you deal with people, your personality is not going to change. Your body's going to change, and that is an oppositional idea. It's coherent. So there's no problem with that. Following the semicolon, I've got a malcontent for 100-pound patient will most likely remain cantankerous. So that provides an expansion to the idea that this doesn't commonly affect temperament, so the temperament remains the same, into the word remain here, and also cantankerous has a similar connotation to malcontent. If you're a malcontent person, you're unhappy, and it's likely that you're going to be difficult to deal with, and cantankerous if you're unhappy. So you're going to remain that way even though your body's changing. So that makes sense, and this is why this is the right answer as you just saw. Let's go ahead and see why the others don't work. So the word here that we have instead of temperament is form. So it doesn't commonly affect a person's form. Well, if your body's changing and your form isn't being affected, yes, this is an oppositional idea, but the coherence isn't there anymore because we just said your body changed. So if your form doesn't change, that implies your body didn't change, and you can't say although your body changes, your body doesn't change because that's a lie. That doesn't make sense. So this can't be the right answer choice. Like temperament here, outlook works perfectly in that we're talking about the way that you view the world, your inner life. So your body is changing, but not your outlook on life. It doesn't commonly affect a person's outlook. But avuncular doesn't make sense in that it has very little relation to malcontent, and that avuncular means of relating to your uncle. So if you didn't know what the word meant, that's what it is. So once you know that, this can't be the answer. Stature here makes sense. So even though we're talking about your physique, changing and then your physique not changing. So you've got although here. We're also talking about an aspect of your physique that is not going to change. So that makes sense. You've got the opposition and it is coherent. Your height is going to remain the same. However, hedonistic doesn't make sense because hedonistic has very little relation to malcontent. Hedonistic is a person that gives into to pleasure, to things that will satisfy their need for pleasure, drive for pleasure, and that has little to do with being unhappy. Cogitation here makes some sense too, in that you're going to be pondering about whatever you're pondering, despite the fact that your body's changing. You're going to have a rich inner life. But elliptical doesn't make sense, in that elliptical means that either you have an ellipsis, so you're taking a break for a little bit, or it's of or relating to an ellipsis. So that has little to do with being malcontent. I hope that helped with this problem. Happy prepping.